The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Welcome to episode 108. This episode concludes our spring season of the podcast. And today we're talking about emotional sobriety, how to stop buffering your life and really start participating in it honestly. Many women believe eating because of how they feel is like usually about food cravings or lack of discipline or maybe like just weakness, whether it's the weakness around your relationship to yourself and that food or the relationship between yourself and how you're feeling over how you're eating. But here's what I've learned in, gosh, it's probably 15,000 hours of one-on-one coaching women over weight, where emotional eating comes up a lot. I believe now that emotional eating is often about something much deeper than those surface level concepts of control or weakness. Emotional eating is what life coaches call buffering yourself from how you're feeling, because that's one way that we overeat. When you're not hungry for the food, right? And you're eating in response to how you're feeling, whether you don't like how you feel, or maybe you love how you feel. Maybe you're celebrating and you're overeating because you feel great. This is buffering. So it's the idea of the buffer is I need to have food to help accompany me through this place of how I'm feeling, whether the feeling is challenging and negative or celebratory, joyful, and positive. It's where two things have become conflated, and your habits around food then are dictated by how you feel. Sometimes we eat because emotionally eat in a different way, and that could be because you're trying to distract yourself from how you feel. In other words, it's not that the food makes you changes how you feel and makes you feel better. I'm feeling bad. Let's have Oreos and then I'll feel better. Okay. That's buffering because you believe the food changes how you feel. When we overeat because we associate that with celebration or maybe being at a party, right? That's about I get more feelings because I'm eating and the eating is giving me those feelings. That's just a misunderstanding. Chunks of food going down your esophagus do not give you feelings or create feelings in your body. That is a misapprehension of how your feelings are created. And I've been doing this so long, sometimes I forget that people don't know this. They really do believe, no, I'm happier when I'm having X, Y, or Z food. Or X, Y, or Z food cheers me up when I'm feeling depressed. And maybe you're experiencing that, but what you're not noticing is that your thoughts about what's happening are changing because of the ritual of food going down your esophagus. I mean, let's face it, some people think the same thing about heroin. I feel better when I do heroin. That's why I do heroin. And those of us over here, emotional, doing that with eating, are like, oh, no, that's crazy. But it's actually the same thing, right? Heroin gives you a huge dopamine hit in the brain, and so does food. But that's not the same thing as creating feelings inside of your body. Feelings are created by how we choose to think about what we're doing. If you gave me heroin, I would not feel good about it. So how do you explain that difference between myself and a heroin addict who loves heroin? Well, it's how the two of us think differently about that substance. I would see that as absolute poison, and somebody else might think it's the solution to feeling wretched in their life. The difference is thinking. And the last one, eating to distract over how you feel, because let's face it, 21st century food is super sensory. It's highly palatable. And for many processed foods, it's designed to kind of hijack your brain that in such a way that you can't ignore what's happening in your mouth because it tastes so good. So it does give you some temporary relief, perhaps, because your attention is being shifted by your sensory manipulation by putting food in your mouth. But the food itself isn't distracting. It's your thoughts about how good the food tastes that is distracting you. Okay, so this whole concept is called buffering. It means I need food to change how I feel. And when you stop wanting to kind of put these things together, using food to change how you feel, something very uncomfortable happens. Your awareness will increase and you will begin to notice what drains you more, what bores you, what dysregulates you, where you disappear, where you silence yourself, where you consistently put yourself last, and where your life is asking for more honesty because you're no longer piling food to modulate how your life makes you feel. No different than somebody who's tired of buffering their life with alcohol, right? So, emotional buffering isn't just about food. Buffering is really anything that's used to interrupt emotional contact with reality, the reality of your life. My life is like this, and then I feel this way, right? So, sometimes examples of buffering to interrupt that emotional relationship with how life is for you is overeating. We will over scroll. We will over wine. We will over produce by being overly productive. We will people please. We will be more compliant, right? People pleasing is a form of buffering with other people. If I just do or say what I think will make them happy, then I will feel better, right? It's not people pleasing that makes you feel better. It's your thoughts around compliance that makes you feel better. It's not the compliance itself. Also, dissociation, we can do that to kind of check out, and other kinds of numbing. You guys know what it is. So, emotional buffering keeps women from responding consciously to the truth of their lives. And for those of you who are happily buffering, this is not the podcast for you. But I always say, like, it's not really a problem unless it's getting in the way of something else you want. And let's face it, most of you want to lose weight. And if you're eating over how you feel, that's a form of overeating that is directly in the way of your weight goals. So, cleaning up your buffering with food over how you feel can really help streamline your weight management goals for you. I do know in order for you to reach your goals, you're going to have to do less emotional overeating, less buffering with food. Maybe you don't have to get rid of it altogether. But I think there's like a golden thread that comes from working on decreasing emotional eating that even far outweighs helping you also to reach your weight goals because it's a more honest and direct relationship with your life. When you aren't afraid to sit with how you feel, um, it allows you to have a more direct relationship with what's needed in your life and how the reality of your life and the honest experience of your life makes you feel. And, you have sovereignty and free will in your life, hopefully, for most of us, hopefully all of us, that if things need to get changed and you're just eating over that, you are ignoring what is being asked for in your life. And you're denying yourself that experience of evolving through your life by using your emotions to wake up to the reality of your life and to try to do some things differently so that you can have more peace, more calm in your life, less reactive eating. That would be nice, right? So, being emotionally sober is a practice that asks you, instead of just eating over how you feel, ask yourself, what is this discomfort trying to show me about my life? So I want to give you some real life examples of emotional sobriety versus buffering over how you feel, eating over how you feel. One example, I have had this and I still have this. The long restaurant meal. You guys ever go to a restaurant and you're sitting there for like longer than an hour? I think some of us love to do this. But for those of us who maybe are more introverted or like small talk is hard, or maybe the people you're eating with can be a little challenging after an hour of sitting down and eating with them. Um, a lot of times what I hear is like when I talk to my clients about their overeats, they'll say, well, I just kept picking at my food at the restaurant. And I'm like, well, why? And I was like, did you not realize you were full? And they're like, no, 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 I knew I was full. But we were sitting there for so long. I was so uncomfortable and I didn't want to be there anymore. So I was just eating. It just helped me get through it. Um, that is emotional buffering with food. You're using food to make it less uncomfortable for you to sit there. And when you do that, you're ignoring the truth of your restlessness, your overstimulation at the table, your social fatigue, and your own desire to leave. And so, my question to a lot of my clients in this situation is, why aren't you saying, I'm ready to leave? Some of us have never done that. We're just sort of like conditioned to be compliant and let that decision be made by other people. And maybe your discomfort at the table is trying to tell you to start to speak up for some of these things, some of your needs to be met when you're out with other people. Okay. Maybe your response would look like, probably getting ready to leave in the next 10 minutes. I have this myself, and what I say if when I've been there for an hour, and my husband knows this, if if the group isn't ready to go yet, that's when I get up and I take a walk. I just walk through the restaurant. Maybe I use the bathroom, and that's enough. Sometimes I need to actually walk outside. And I just say, text me when you guys are done, or sometimes I just insist I'm ready to go. And I might just text him. So it's appropriate and doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. And working on this, responding appropriately to how you feel when you are stretched beyond what your limits are for being out with other people can help evolve you and grow you in your life. So you just feel more in control. So emotional sobriety means sometimes admitting this just doesn't feel good for me. Can we change? Can we do something different? Can we go? Okay. Another example that I often see in my coaching is watching TV shows you don't even like night after night after night. Because most often what I hear when this comes up is that the dynamic is my client, doesn't isn't really as into TV as maybe your partner is. So the established dynamic is the partner picks the TV shows and they want your company. They love you and they want you there. And so you find yourself kind of feeling like a little bit trapped especially when the show is a show that you don't enjoy. Or maybe it's just that you want to go in the bedroom and read, or you want to go do something different. Buffering, right, often takes the form of I'm going to go up and get something to eat because I'm bored. I'm dissociating. I want to do something different. But again, you're not speaking up to either do what you want to do or maybe negotiate a different program that you also like. So let's talk about an emotionally sober response. Instead of grabbing the popcorn and having overeats every night over this, use your discomfort in this moment over sitting there. And instead of eating over it, like you communicate, I actually don't want to watch TV past 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Like from now on, I'm going to go in the room. Or I only want to watch Survivor with you, honey, and maybe one other show. That Dutton Ranch just came out today, right? Maybe you choose and like just say like the different shows that you're interested in watching. And if it's something else, um, then you might go read. Maybe you take a bath. Maybe you work on hobbies. Maybe you go to bed. But the thing is that if you're eating over, feeling stuck and trapped, is that really a reason that you like for eating? Especially if it's getting in the way or slowing down your weight management. Negotiating an enjoyable life with other people is part of emotional sobriety and living an unbuffered life. Okay, another example. Adult children who dysregulate you. Okay, I don't have to get into this too much. Like, I think we can all honestly say if we have children of any age, sometimes they're hard to be around. Sometimes they're dysregulating. Sometimes they're annoying. And it's okay to kind of just even admit that to yourself sometimes. If you're eating over how difficult it is to be with your children, um, you know, you're over accommodating, you're silencing your needs, you're emotionally absorbing things, right? And maybe you're just not allowing yourself to be honest because you're not believing that they can handle your honest feedback about how they're affecting you, especially, of course, if they're adults. So, if you want to practice emotional sobriety, maybe instead of eating over how hard this feels for you, you start asking yourself, like, ideas of like, how much exposure allows me to remain loving without abandoning myself? How long is that? And under what circumstances? What do I have to create boundaries around certain topics that I feel as though are just too difficult that I don't want to talk about? And, or maybe it's just that you need to advocate that not all interactions need to be about them. That sometimes you want to talk about what's going on in your own life. And if you feel shut down and unable to really like be yourself with your adult children, and that's so uncomfortable that you're eating over it, I want to just remind you that loving somebody does not require the suppression of your own nervous system. And if you're eating over this, the eating is there to remind you that this is not sustainable. So, the next thing I want to talk about is compliance as a form of emotional buffering. Let me give you an example. Maybe my client misses a coaching session with me, and her response to me is, "Well, I had somebody drop by and they stayed so long that, it went into the time that we were supposed to meet." And, on the surface, I know my client like loves the person who came over, doesn't want to be impolite. She wants to be generous. And so she sort of sacrifices the coaching session. But the truth is, internally, and I know this because we talked through it, She feels disappointed in herself. That choice to elevate the other person, not even let them know that you have a scheduled appointment online and you have to go, triggers that old feeling of like everybody always comes first. I always, you know, get the shit end of the stick, right? My needs always have to go unmet. And it leaves her feeling disconnected from herself and let down. And yes, there can be buffering over this. And sometimes you can just overthink hard stories as a form of buffering. See, this is how it is for me. But when you're telling yourself that, you're not really telling yourself the honest story, which is, I could choose differently. I could say, I'd love to hang out with you more, but I have an appointment. And, her responsibility, if that's what she chooses to do, I'm not saying what's right or wrong for her. Again, buffering over how you feel with food, if that's getting in the way from the life that you want to be, the person you want to be, then you owe it to yourself to try some different responses other than buffering over how you feel. Okay. So if she wants to contradict or start to change this old, tired story of everybody comes first except me, then her work is to work with a situation like this and, find her voice. And it might feel really hard, but probably the person understands, right? And she owes that to herself for her own, you know, evolving in her life. The suffering is not caused by the person who came and overstayed their time. Her suffering is caused by abandoning herself without reminding herself she has conscious choice in this. So it doesn't always look like rebellion to eat over how you feel, like sneak eating or something like that. Sometimes it just looks like compliance with like not being a bother to anybody, not being a squeaky wheel, not advocating for what you really want, staying silent, stuffing how you feel. Buffered responses, whether you're eating or not, accommodates life how it is, requires you to suppress your own needs, override your own priorities, and avoid discomfort of doing the work of self advocacy. And then later, what happens is, not as if that wasn't uncomfortable enough, later on, when you ruminate over this, you're probably going to feel resentment. You're going to overeat. You're going to feel disappointed and you're going to feel less in charge of your life. So, emotionally sober responses sound like, in this example, like, I'm so glad you stopped by. I actually have a coaching meeting in a few minutes, but let's make another time to get together. And that tiny moment starts to build self trust, it builds agency. It is just as uncomfortable as buffering and not saying anything about your coaching call, right? Both are uncomfortable, but one choice moves you forward to make you feel more in charge of your agency around other people. Many women are waiting to feel safe before they advocate for themselves. But safety often gets built through practicing self advocacy. If you constantly buffer by being compliant, you never discover whether life could hold both your needs and other people at the same time. And this is the thing that your brain will never tell you is that most often you can find a way to have the best of both worlds. That my family can understand that I get really antsy after an hour sitting at a restaurant table. And that's just mom. She gets up and takes a walk, and nobody takes it badly. I don't even feel bad anymore because it's so practiced. And it makes me feel like I'm not captured at a table. And it also gives other people notice that, like, I'm really ready to go soon, right? So, the friction of your life that we tend to eat over is information. Um, Instead of immediately buffering it, this discomfort, I want you asking, why is this difficult for me? What keeps surfacing? What am I not telling the truth about? What am I ignoring? What am I avoiding? What am I postponing? Emotional buffering keeps women busy managing your discomfort instead of responding to the source of it. When you respond to the source of your discomfort, you actually start to improve the quality and the experience of living your life. So let's talk about what happens when you stop buffering, when you start practicing emotional sobriety. It's going to get real uncomfortable. People will push back. People will misunderstand. People can get angry. Um, you're going to be more truthful and you're going to take more responsibility for your feelings. When you can no longer say, like, the food makes me feel better, that responsibility for you to directly make you feel better will move into yourself. And that actually can feel a lot better than relying on food. Practiced more and more, when you refuse to stop buffering over how you feel and eating over how you feel, eventually you will have more peace, more alignment, more self-respect, more honesty, less overeating, less resentment, less paralysis, and more agency and sovereignty in your own life. So building a life that feels better requires tolerating the discomfort of changing it. Emotional sobriety is not becoming emotionless. It's becoming honest enough with yourself to stop abandoning yourself, to stop buffering over your own experience, to stop constantly sedating the signals of your life that your life is trying to send you, the wisdom in how you feel, and using that to enact changes so you can feel more peace, more groundedness, and more agency in your life. And, it will also help you trust that your needs and your limits, your preferences, your desires, your humanity deserve space inside your life, not after everyone else, not only when it's convenient for other people, and not only when no one will be disappointed in you, but like now. I hope that you use this episode to help redefine your philosophy about how you respond to your life and how you respond to how the truth of your life makes you feel. This will absolutely change your relationship with emotional eating. It can set you free from it. It can help you develop more self-trust that you will be an advocate for yourself. You will have more nervous system regulation. You will start really focusing on things you can control rather than things that you can't control. You will practice boundary setting and follow through with boundaries. You will be more of a self advocate. You will identify more as a proactive person in your own life, and you will feel much more alignment in your life. I want this for all of you. It's not easy work, but it will change your life. Thank you for joining me. You can find me on Instagram at Thrive in Midlife, and let me know how you found the episode. I'd love to hear. Stay focused. I'll see you with the next episode for summer 2026. So long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and become a VIP subscriber. You'll learn how to work with me. You'll get 2 free gifts, access to exclusive VIP content, and get a discount on the digital follow-through planner.